If there is one topic that has consumed the news all week, what has it been? The fires and the haze, right? We even have haze maps. Did you see this? Sometimes you get snow maps, sometimes you get rain maps. What do we have this week? We had haze maps, right? And if there's one thing over every news channel, all over the place, yes? Crazy, yes? And one of the headlines was this: what is taking your breath away? Well, obviously the answer, the haze, the smoke, right? But the headline caught my attention. What is taking your breath away? And I thought about this all week, especially as I approached the scriptures. And the scriptures give us 3 examples of what takes our breath away. Now, we're not talking about the haze right now, okay? We're talking about our spiritual breath, yes? Go to the first reading. What was taking their breath away? They were grumbling and mumbling. So here's Moses like, folks, do you realize what God has done for you? And he's led you, he's done all this, and they are grumbling and mumbling. You know why? Because it was never enough. And they couldn't say it out loud, but what were they doing? They were feeling sorry for themselves, so they were grumbling and they were mumbling. Go to the second reading. The second reading is the second part of the story. So right before St. Paul is really dealing with, the people were complaining about one another. They were verbally out loud complaining, literally causing division in the community. What was taking their breath away? What were they doing? Say it. We would never do this. I know, right? What were they doing? Complaining. And so they were out of breath, if you will. Go to the gospel. So we have mumbling and grumbling. You see how this is going to move in stages here. Mumbling, grumbling, feeling sorry, complaining, criticizing others. Down to the gospel. What were they doing in the gospel, Matt? No, they were quarreling. They were quarreling in the gospel. So you move from the mumble and the grumble to the complain to the straight out. Say it like you mean it. Pretend you're fighting with your spouses. Yes, you got that right. And it's a really good question. What is taking your breath away? Mumbling, grumbling, complaining and division, or straight up, outright quarreling? It's a good question, isn't it? For all of us to reflect on. And what do you do when you're out of breath? What do you need to do when you have to catch your breath? You got to stop. You got to slow it down. And especially for us, you got to come to the Lord. The end of the gospel, what does Jesus want to do? He wants to refresh and renew us personally, collectively, across the board. Think about this. If you're walking and you're out of breath, what do you got to do? And what do you got to do? You got to catch your breath. Slow it down. So that we can, instead of grumbling, mumbling, complaining, and straight up quarreling, be refreshed and renewed. And it's a great message for us on the Feast of Corpus Christi. Here's why. Because on this Feast of Corpus Christi, where do we best stop and catch our breath? Where? Exactly. And so when we find ourselves getting worked up, or better said, out of breath, where do we need to come? Here. Here to the table of the Lord, where God will provide for everything that we need. Peace, strength, wisdom, forgiveness, real solutions to our problems. In the chapel, where the Blessed Sacrament is there all the time, sitting quietly so that we can catch our breath. And the struggle with this is sometimes it's a lot easier just to keep mumbling, grumbling, complaining, if not straight up quarreling, than doing the things we need to do to catch our breath, which is stop bring ourselves here so we can find the strength, the serenity, the breath, the peace of the Lord. As we walk into the week, the first reading reminds us that you and I are called to live by every word that comes from the mouth of God. So if God, so to speak, is sending out the breath, using God's breath, what do we have to do? Listen. Take some time to listen first to yourself. Are you mumbling, grumbling, complaining, or quarreling? And then allow yourself the time to listen to the Lord. Secondly, when we need to catch our breath, where do we need to come? Right? Joan's a great example. She stops up here all the time. Middle of the day, right, Joan? Right? Why? To catch your breath. Right? And it doesn't have to be for an hour. It doesn't have to be for days. It could be for 2 minutes. But here, I think all of us would agree, what happens? When we come here, we catch our breath. And thirdly, if you're going to use any of your own breath, then invite people to join you when you come here. God will provide for everything that we need. So logically, all these people have not figured that out yet. Right? So how do you invite them to join you? Because here it is God's promise. It is the mystery of our faith that when we come here, for all of us, God will provide for everything that we need. What is taking your breath away? This past week, it was probably the haze, right? But more importantly, day to day, what is taking your breath? Mumbling, grumbling, complaining, quarreling? And how do we catch our breath? By coming to the Lord.